So Bali. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on Bali. I've got a lot of thoughts, and a lot of you have asked for more videos like this where I just kind of give those raw, unfiltered, thoughts about what it was actually like living in one of these places. So that's what this is going to be. I will say sorry ahead of time if you're hearing the noise in the background. It's waves. That's what's going on over there. So hopefully you can hear me all right. But Bali is a really interesting one. I've got a lot of mixed feelings. I think the big takeaway that I keep coming back to is that Bali is a place that is misrepresented online. And that really should come as no surprise. Obviously, social media and travel blogs and influencers, which I am well aware I am a part of, so it probably sounds hypocritical. Like, this industry does a really poor job of accurately representing places, and I understand why at times, but Bali seems to be one of those places that is maybe most misrepresented. So I'm going to try to walk you through how it's misrepresented. So Bali is a place kind of extremes. Extreme beauty, extreme misrepresentation, extreme poverty and lack of infrastructure, extreme energy in a positive way. There's this energy on the island that is tough to explain. It is really just a feeling in the air. Talking with the people, it is just different. It is beautiful in so many ways there. I think the main way that it gets misrepresented online, though, is you think of Bali, or how I thought of Bali before ever stepping foot on the island, was this kind of world of, a cultural experience that I had never seen. It was going to be a different world, a cultural immersion, something that was just going to be completely different, something that was going to be life-changing. That's kind of what I think social media sells from an idea perspective on Bali. That was my preconceived notion before I went. And there are ways where that is true, because there are parts of the island that really are unexplored, really are going to provide you with a very different cultural experience. But the areas where most tourists end up, and I'll say there are little areas that are called like Canggu and Ubud and Seminyak, these places that most of the content that you're likely seeing are coming from, they are not representative of the rest of Bali. They're tourist hot zones. And one of the things that gets misrepresented a lot is just the actual experiences in those places are just, they're different in kind of a negative way from how I experience them. And I've talked with a lot of others who have spent time in Bali, and there's a common kind of poor taste that's left in somebody's mouth when visiting Bali, where you just feel like you ended up going to a place that was swarmed with tourists, because these places are really built for the tourists, for the people that have more money, which are typically white folks from the UK, the US, a lot of Australians, because for the Australians it's a pretty short flight, at least compared to people coming from the US and Europe. And Bali does offer some good deals. Like it's an affordable place to be. Now that's changing, and I'll touch on that as well, because I think that's another misconception or misrepresentation. But it was kind of disappointing getting to the island. I think people get sucked into those bubbles, those tourist zones, for a couple of reasons. One, that's where everybody says to stay, are in those areas that I mentioned, Canggu, Seminyak, Ubud. And because that's where everybody stays, those areas, there's a ton of gentrification happening, a ton of just pushing out the locals, high prices, and that's all because they're building up this infrastructure for the tourists, for the people with the money to profit, which I get that unfortunately happens in so many places, and it's something that is one of the most challenging pieces in traveling, how I'm doing it, and spending a month in a place at each time, moving to a new country. It's a common theme that I find, and obviously if you watch the Portugal kind of unfiltered conversation, it was kind of the main theme there of what I saw in Lisbon. And it's very sad for the locals. I mean, the prices are just kind of insane. To give you some perspective, when Sarah and I went and stayed for the month, we had a nice accommodation. We kind of treated it as our honeymoon, place. It was right after we got married. We paid like $1,500 for the month, which, by U.S. standards, that may be pretty good. For Bali standards, that was probably pretty expensive at the time. I looked at the exact same place that we stayed, same dates as well, just for this year. And what we paid $1,500 for a year or two ago is now almost $5,000. Same exact place. That's more than, triple the cost. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like that's happening quite a bit in those areas. And you saw it with food, you saw it with just kind of everything. You didn't feel like you were experiencing the local culture because the locals simply could not afford to be in those areas where the tourists hang out. Which, I mean, it's probably a whole other video on just the ethical and like moral stuff that's going on there all around the world with that. And it's something that I do a lot of thinking on because I understand that I'm very much a part of the system that is causing that. I'm trying to find ways to limit that negative impact because I do view that as a big negative. I feel for the locals knowing that they simply can't afford, it's crazy to think about. When you think about something like that, it's easy to understand like the broad concept of it, but it's different when you see it in person, see the pain on people's faces, which the Balinese people do a really good job of hiding, which is in some ways sad that they're hiding it, but like those are some of the warmest, just most welcoming, kind, well-intentioned people, probably the nicest people I've interacted with from like a cultural perspective, like meeting people at like the restaurants and just around town. They're so kind. You get on a first name basis with a lot of them, and it really is special. And I think it makes that realization of recognizing the pain that them and their peers and other locals are experiencing that much harder to grapple with. But yeah, anyways, because those zones where everybody's being told to stay are now overpriced and pushing the locals out, and it's just like this compounding effect, right? Prices go up, infrastructure gets more comfortable for the Westerners who are finding restaurants with Western food, with Western standards, Western shopping, and they just become these pockets where it's like, yeah, it's more comfortable. This is the place where I get it. The Australian folks want to come and hang out for a week and party. I get why they want to be in those areas, but it means you don't get the real cultural immersion if you're looking for that. You'd have to go further out. And another thing from like an extreme perspective is Bali doesn't have good infrastructure publicly. Privately, again, some of these buildings are beautiful, especially the ones that cater towards the Westerners. But when you explore other parts of the island, like the roads are they're scary. They're downright scary to be on. You basically need a scooter because there's no form of public transportation, and I mean, you technically could walk, but I mean, it'd be really difficult to walk from place to place. Most people are going to rent scooters, and that's what we did because we felt like we had to out of necessity. And it was a really cool experience being on the scooters, but also terrifying because you go and you rent your scooter, and like for me, I was like, okay, I know nothing about scooters. I don't know how to ride one of these things, don't know how to control it, and these guys just hand the scooter over to me and say, have fun. And it's like, oh wait, but there's a lot of traffic, like there's just different type of traffic laws. You've got roads that don't have enough space for scooters and cars going in both directions. You've got stray dogs everywhere, just all kinds of things that you're just not used to. And like it's a pretty scary experience at first, and it becomes more scary. Like that scary factor compounds when you realize, oh man, everybody that I'm riding on these streets with, a lot of them are also Western tourists like me, who are probably in pretty similar positions, and a lot of them are drinking heavily, and nobody has a lot of experience on these roads, and there are a lot of accidents, and it really is an unsafe situation. So if you're gonna do it, please wear a helmet. My God, I've seen some horror stories. You witness plenty of accidents. and medical services on the island of Bali aren't as strong as one would hope. If something serious were to happen, you'd probably need to get over to, Jakarta, which is, a whole different island, or you'd need to get, maybe to Singapore or something, depending on what you need. Like, there are very base level medical facilities, in Bali. And because of that I think deters people from breaking out of those bubbles and going far, because it's a scary proposition to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go explore this, part of the island that I want to see, but oh man, it's 2 or 3 hours by scooter and 2 or 3 hours by scooter. This is an area that I don't know. Am I going to have, cell coverage? Am I going to be able to navigate? What's the road situation going to be like? If it's raining, is the road going to be flooded? What kind of situation am I getting myself into? And I think it just deters people from ever exploring those, because again, those pockets are really comfortable for the Westerners. They're designed to be, and they're becoming ever more so comfortable. So I think it's important to have those realistic expectations, and maybe those realistic expectations will A, help ensure that you don't have that negative taste in your mouth, but B, are able to break out of that bubble a little bit more. I'll be first to admit, I did a poor job breaking out of that bubble. Like, the furthest that we really, from an excursion standpoint, got was we did the 1.5 to 2 ride to Ubud, and that was wonderful. Scary, interesting. So many cultural things there that were really neat. We went to Monkey Forest. There's monkeys, in the streets and kind of everywhere, and that was really cool. And there was this one thing on the way. We were kind of like in the middle of nowhere, and we're kind of at this intersection. We're stopped, and some guy next to us, a local, is kind of shouting at us. And again, people are really friendly. So you start talking to him. He's like, "Hey, have you ever tried poop coffee?" And we're like, "What?" He's like, follow me. I'll take you to poop coffee." And we're like, "What is this guy saying? Is he saying poop?" We had no idea what he was talking about. Of course, we researched it after, and there's these animals called, I think they're pronounced like a civet, kind of this like cat-like mammal that I guess eat these like cherries that have this seed in the middle that are kind of like coffee beans, and it's called poop coffee because I guess when those animals eat it, they're, something happens in the the intestines, and eventually they poop them out, and people extract the beans from the poop and, clean them and turn them into coffee, and apparently it's some sort of delicacy. We didn't end up trying it, but apparently that's what that guy was trying to sell us on, and just to follow him to some farm to try, but I don't know. Said Unfiltered. I don't know where I was going with that. Just an interesting thing that happened, when we were there. But there are those things. There are those unique cultural experiences, but you really do have to go out and look for them. And I think it's important that if and when you visit Bali, have those realistic expectations, understand the pain point of those locals, and be respectful, and also just don't trash the place. I think one of the most disappointing parts and one of the most misrepresented parts of Bali is when you think of Bali, you think these beautiful beaches, and they are, but in those pockets where everybody hangs out, they're not. The ocean is beautiful, the beaches, the bones are there, but because there are so many people partying, they are trashed. So much glass and just trash on the beaches, and part of that probably has to do with the just infrastructure. Again, from like a waste management standpoint, like you'll see all over Bali like these trenches like on the side of the road, and they're just filled to the brim with trash. And then when it rains, those kind of flow down to the beach areas and into the ocean. So there really is, there are challenges with that. That again I think are just misrepresented. Yeah, I don't know. It just is a place of extremes. Another extreme that I didn't expect: stray dogs. So many, stray dogs, everywhere, literally everywhere. Don't know that there's a point to that. Just something to note, but. Yeah, it really is one of those just more interesting places that I've had the opportunity to visit. That again, I think there's plenty of beauty within Bali. You should visit, but you should go in with different expectations than what social media would lead you to believe. And I really hope that we're able to find a better balance as just human species is trying to figure out this whole gentrification, thing, and pushing these locals out in all of these places that are viewed as cheap to Westerners, with the money. I wish I had better solutions there. But if you were a local or somebody who spent time in Bali, I'd love to know kind of your thoughts and your experiences on this. I think one of the most rewarding parts about this type of video is that for the one in Portugal, just a ton of engagement and really thoughtful engagement, which I really, really appreciate. You guys doing. It's the most special part about getting to do all this. So I really would love to have that again with this video. Again, I hate to have to mention it, but be respectful of one another. Be respectful of the locals. These are sensitive topics. I get that. Shouldn't have to say it, but it's the internet. Also, let me know what other kind of things you want to know when I'm sharing these sorts of things. And also, shameless plug, I started a newsletter where I'm kind of giving some unfiltered thoughts and a weekly travel tip. So if you do want to subscribe to that, I'll leave a link in the description. I send it out every Tuesday. So feel free to check that out. And if you want to see kind of one of my more influencer type videos about kind of what I loved and hated in Bali, I'll leave a link for it right here where you can watch that. And I might make one on some things that I wish I had known before going to Bali as well, some of the logistical stuff. So you'll probably be able to watch that one up here if I ever make that. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I hope this was all helpful, and let me know what you guys think. Catch you guys next time.